Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on March 10th, 2025 at approximately 9 p.m. PST. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools that I use to guide virtually every decision I make. And the tools and the philosophy of life, I scrambled that badly, so let's not bother butchering that one anymore. But today we are looking at an off-worlder solution to the current chaos on this planet. I keep getting asked by people, well, if the aliens are so interested in what's going on our planet, why don't they come down and help us fix it? Well, the primary reason, from their standpoint, is they're forbidden to do so. Now, the benevolent races will not break that doctrine because, well, they're forbidden to do so and they are benevolent. The negative races, the malevolent ones, won't do it because the Galactic Consortium has a very simple philosophy. You step in and interfere with the socioeconomic evolution of a given planet, we blow your planet up. We blow up the planet that houses your primary, secondary, and tertiary governments. We're not talking about bombing the planet. We're talking about atomizing the core. Okay, kind of a good deterrent when you think about it. And given that off-worlders are not permitted to take positions of power, okay, they can't come down and just simply go, we're going to change it. Okay, however, there are lots of cases where an off-worlder has come down and passed on to a layman, this is what has to happen. Unfortunately, there are so many humans going, we don't want to do that. We want to have all of our goodies and none of the dangers. It doesn't work that way. But when we look at the off-worlders, they've all gone through similar things where they were faced with an absolutely devastating situation that they either had to make a change or lose their whole civilization. Now, when we look at one race in particular, the Sarkon, they took their spacefaring race and expanded it too far, too fast. Mankind has expanded its attachment to the material world too far, too fast. Okay, and what the Sarkon did was they warned the people in the outlying areas, we're going to have to cut support. So they dropped off what they could to prep the people, and then on the given day pulled the plug on it. Modern civilization has the same option. Now, I should have actually gone down the other road first. First of all, number one, we have Storm in the background handling the technology on this whole shindig and helping to make sure, well, almost virtually single-handedly, keeping the problem children out. Okay, with literally Storm's work that put the Buy Me a Coffee link into position. Okay, and with that in mind, that is proving to be the saving grace of keeping my head above water. Okay, so definitely a hats off to Storm. Then we have LA in the house. She is the one that is keeping an eye, helps keep things moving inside the room. At the same time, making sure my health stays functionally stable. So you'll be happy to know dinner's already been dealt with. Although I'm likely to have second dinner when I get done. Now, LA goes, I think the consortium has the same idea that most cops have when they have to diffuse a domestic dispute. They don't want to. Well, yeah, they don't want to ever. Well, I did see one post years ago. Well, I think about 2 years ago, out of the front page of the Chicago Tribune. And it caught me really off guard because what it said was 2 shot dead after police respond to a domestic abuse. Now, that sounds really bad, and part of me thinks it sounds really funny. It's one heck of a way to end an abusive situation. But let me be clear, okay? The way that reads really sort of looks at it and says the cops were the problem. I bet dollars to donuts that what happened was the police probably went to the event, went to the situation, diffused it as best they could, and left. And then they had the problem after the fact. Only the headline was designed to grab your attention. Now, I haven't quite figured the whole 9 yards out as to how that works, because I tell you, the number of people I talk to, or that I hear from, and I'm talking mainstream ufologists, going, oh, we're prepping for an alien invasion. Guys, I've done this before, but here's the way an alien invasion takes place. Okay, if they actually want to take the planet over and the consortium would get out of the way, here's the way it plays out. Angels of Life, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You are in with the gold, angels. Here's the way it plays out. They move into about the orbit of Mars and hit Earth with a subquantum EMP pulse that blankets the entire planet. Understand, a subquantum EMP pulse will cut right through the planet, not doing any damage, except it will realign the molecules in every electronic component that is even built, never mind whether it's connected, whether it's hooked up. So you have this EMP pulse go through, wipes out all of your satellites, all of your computers, all of your digital data, not to mention all of your equipment. LA goes, they usually aren't the problem. They'll try to take one spouse or the other, and suddenly they're both escalating towards the police. I had a boyfriend years ago that was a cop. He'd rather go to a riot than a domestic dispute. Cops get killed during domestics, and that's the reality of it. But when we take out, and this is the problem, is we put the picture on the wrong side. Okay, people are so quick to blame somebody else. Seldom do they look into the mirror. But from the off-world standpoint, it's like, okay, you got chaos down here. First of all, wipe out everything electronic. That means all of the component parts. Now, I warn you, if that happens, there are very few people left on Earth that know how to actually smelt iron from the ground without the technology. Okay, there's got to be some, but I wouldn't hold my breath on it. Okay, then you got to worry about how to do all the manufacturing. So we're looking at getting pushed back. Storm would have a better idea on this one than I do, but I'd lay odds to push us back a good 1,000 years in technology because you got nothing left. Okay, once they've done that, which means you get no warning, now they pull into about the orbit of the moon, and they start knocking the debris out of Earth's orbit, to land in very good, very solid point on the planet. Okay, and rest assured, you drop a satellite onto the middle of a major city, it's going to have all the impact of a nuclear bomb with none of the fallout. So when you're looking at that, your war with the off-world is over before you even know it. Okay, but like I said, this is something that doesn't add up. The numbers don't add up. Number one, if they were actually interested in taking the planet. How we doing, Eternity? Glad you could join us. Now, let me just see here. We had angels in with the gold. Eternity, you are in with the silver tonight. So we are looking at, if they wanted to take the place over, it would be child's play to do it. But let me ask you, is it their responsibility or yours? Off-worlders are not here. People say, why don't they come down at the same time they're going, we're a quarantine planet? Well, Earth isn't quarantined. It's not a prison planet. Okay. Well, that was fun. It's, you think about it. If we're a prison planet, how in tarnation are so many people being abducted? Okay. Off-worlders are not here to sort out the problem. Now, if the Strazazians, the 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptilians, had not got here first, and the Tekla arrived, we would have had a big problem, because Tekla would have taken the planet, but they wouldn't have bothered conquering it. They'd have started off in one location and wiped it out wholesale. Okay. They would have wiped the thing out wholesale, taken all the people not as slaves. They'd have taken them as food. Okay. All of your technology would have been taken. Okay. The Moloch have been here, and there's not many of them, by the way, but the Moloch have been here since before man was even a thought. But they arrived here by accident, in all fairness. The only reason they didn't try and take over is because, frankly, not enough people. Okay, they do. The Moloch, by the way, if you look at the movie Alien, no, my apologies, that is not correct. If you look at the movie Predator, they were based, as near as I can tell, they were based. The Predator from the movie was based on the Moloch, and they are a violent crew, but there's not that many of them on the planet. Okay, but what we're looking at here is, if off-worlders en masse were to show up, if the consortium did not stand guard over it and say, it's not happening, okay, the Gaddafi, who is the Nords, could have taken it over. Okay, they were told to go home, so they did. Okay, this doesn't mean they didn't come back. But when you're looking at the whole chaos thing, there's a lot of different ideas out there these guys have, not the least of which is take all the leaders out and enslave the rest of the planet in order to work with what they will. But before anybody jumps on that, how about if we don't go with the idea that some alien race has enslaved a whole pile of humans to mine for gold? Gold is not the best conductor on their periodic table. Okay. I cannot give you the answer to that. Apparently, I'm tired, but I'm going to have to work with it. The thing is, there are other elements that transport or conduct energy a lot better than gold. So when you think about that, this is a backwoods planet, okay, comparatively. But the reality of it is mankind has not evolved very far. So we're looking at a situation where off-worlders don't try and take over a planet from the cattle. It just doesn't make much sense. Okay, and this is why I say you don't have to, it doesn't make sense that you would bother looking to the off-worlders for them to straighten out the mess. Guys, I hate to tell you this. Well, I told you this yesterday. You're the ones that screwed up the planet. You're the ones that are going to have to fix it. But it is doable. It's very doable. And, one of the things you got to remember is the medical assistance you're hoping for was given to the governments around the world about 70 years ago now. Okay, but the governments and the major companies refused to release the information, choosing instead to profit from it. Okay, now the reality of it is we've got a choice. We can either keep waiting for the off-worlders to come in and say, hey, let's straighten this mess out, or we can take a look at what they've done. Every one of the off-world races that I know of that is a member of the consortium, every single one of them has a one world government. This is not a dictatorship. Okay, but they solved their economic and their economic and social problems by uniting as a common species, not by looking at going, let's see how many different ways we can scramble the idea of unity. So I'm just looking down here to see if I missed anything, and apparently not. Now, what you got to look at is the off-worlders are watching what's going on. They do, on occasion, there's multiple reports, okay, of people that have been abducted, and the primary thing they got told was take care of the planet and get along. Only the people that can do something about that en masse are sitting back going, but it's much more profitable for me as an individual to not do that and to make sure we push the idea of war. Let me ask you this. In your house, never mind the rest of the world, okay? In your house, how do you deal with conflict? Does one of you put your foot down and go, this is the law? Or do you sit down and lay the whole thing out and all of you come to a working compromise? Okay, off-worlders have some rather unique solutions. Okay, now many of the carnivorous ones, reptilians are a good example. Okay, many of them, in the case of a civil conflict, will terminate the problem without talking about it. Net result, no problem. Unfortunately, it has the added bonus of creating total chaos. Okay, and what I mean by that is when you start taking out people that are in positions of authority, instead of figuring out what their thinking is, you all of a sudden have an interesting problem. Okay, now, let me ask you this. You're a person somewhere on the planet. Would you, if you had the opportunity, would you step into the spotlight and start changing and start working towards changing things? This is just one of those neat little questions I look at. Now, I can honestly tell you I've already done that myself. But off-worlders are simple. In the consortium, they go, you've been elected to a position. Now, if you do not fulfill that position properly, you are asked to step down. But stepping out of a position of power in the consortium is not considered a flaw. It is not considered a mark against you. It just means you were promoted above your level of capability. Humans have a tendency of promoting each other to the level and to exceed the level of their incompetence, which is why we get some pretty dense decisions being made. Yeah, LA goes, we don't have problems very often. When we do, it involves anger. We cool down first, then an hour or so later, we have an adult conversation and negotiation. And that is how it's supposed to be. Okay, I will tell you guys, there's a really bad rumor out there that's been perpetuated for decades, if not generations. never fight in front of your kids. Now, I call this a bad idea. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get into a knockdown fight in front of anybody. Just don't do it. But if you end up in a fight, providing it is non-physical, okay, the one thing that you got to look at is absolutely do your best not to. But if it happens, make absolutely certain that you make up, not out, in front of the kids as well. Okay, how else are they going to learn peaceful negotiations and how to put the negative past the rest unless you show them how to do it? Off-worlders have a really cute idea. Okay, you get asked to step down out of a position of power. You can either step down, which is what most of them do, or you can argue the point, okay, and refuse to step down. If that fails and you're still a problem, then they have a simple solution, especially in the consortium. They will drag you down to the fusion reactor and throw you in. Okay, that way there is no trace of the DNA to contaminate anything else. And if there was a disease, it's completely obliterated. Okay, now I don't know about you, but I'm thinking this is not a good mark as far as a way of sorting out chaos. I mean, yes, it'll work. You know, if everybody's dead, you don't have chaos. But the off-worlders, one of the big things they do is they don't do a lot of negotiation. It's like you're stepping out of that position. If you don't, 90% of the time you get terminated on the spot. There's no drug out court law, courts. There's no issue of, hey, this person can paint a really good picture to make it look different. There is the facts. This is what you've done. This is what is clearly happened. Now we're going to terminate the problem. Okay. I don't think most humans are going to like that. So what they end up doing, what the off-worlders do, where it comes to a planet like Earth, where it is an absolute socioeconomic chaos, they will leave it alone. Okay, you may get individuals that step in to help individual people, but the consortium has Earth locked down to the point of you cannot step into a position of power and take over. And there is no swapping of high power, of advanced weaponry. They don't, the primitives don't require it. So what we're looking at here, off-worlders, they figured out that every one of the member races has a global community, has a one world government. And that is set up very similar, and it's very similar to the way that today's UN is set up. A lot of people from around the world, what you got to remember is somebody living in an Arctic world isn't going to have the same understanding of those living on desert world, although there are similarities. Now, off-worlders are going to simply look at it and go, you guys wonder why we don't invite you to be a member of the consortium yet. You gotta be able to get along as a species. Okay, now I will tell you, the Reticulans have, that I'm aware of, at least 15 different races, all comprising the same species. Okay, they've got different skin colors, different eye socket configurations, different muscle layouts, different skeletal configurations, amongst other things. Okay, but they managed to find a way to get along, and they did it by communication. And this is the thing that mankind is forgetting how to do. Okay, it is time to look at it and go, okay, what is not being said? What message are you striving to pass on to the people around you? Is it one of anger, of tension, of of fear? I mean, Will, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I get a kick out of it in some ways. Mankind has this brilliant idea. Okay, let's shoot first and ask you your friendly second. Simple point in fact, this is not going to result in a good outcome. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why the off-worlders don't step in and say, hey, you got to do this to make things work. Mankind is incessantly striving to figure things out for itself. Now, I don't know about you, but in my eyes, if there's a way of figuring something out with help, you might want to look into it. Okay. Unfortunately, most people that are aiming and that are willing to help are of the opinion, it seems. Cowie, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And you are right. Cowie's just going, intergalactic relations can be a difficult thing. Absolutely they can. Okay. And this is why communication is so critical. Bear in mind, we've got what? 8 or 10 different races on Earth of humans. Okay. Whether that means a skin color, a geographical location, or a digestive tract difference. Anybody's guess. Okay. I'm suspecting that we've got about 7 races on this planet that are all species wise human. The Zeta Reticulans have 15 minimum, and that's just counting the commoners. Okay, then you got the controllers, and you got more of those. But these are all considered members of the same species. Okay, what you guys are absolutely having to figure out is that no matter what your color, what your skeletal configuration, none of it makes you better than the next person. And this is where the consortium comes in and says, guys, you gotta pull it together. So we are looking at a situation where it is imperative that on the whole, and from what I'm bearing witness to, here's the thing with humans. 2,100 years ago, I saw this same kind of conflict. So here we are 2,000 years later, and you haven't moved one step closer. Maybe one. Okay. If you continue on your current path, the off-worlders are still going to be sitting here in 23, we're in 2100, in 2300, looking at the human race going, they're just not ready yet. Okay, but understand. Here we are. Storm goes, keep banging those rocks together, guys. Understand, unless we start showing people a better way of dealing with things, we're going to have a major problem. And we've got the major problem, but it's going to degrade to something a lot worse. Okay, let me ask you this. With an off-world invasion, let's assume for half a moment it were going to happen. And you got a choice between no help and a human of a different color or of a different orientation. I don't know how you're going to figure that out in the middle of a firefight, but are you going to stand on your own or are you going to work with these other people? Philip, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And we have Nathan coming in right behind, listing from work, I see. this just tells me Nathan is still working a lot, which I think is going to be the way he is for years to come. What we have to realize is off-worlders on the whole will sit back and grab the equivalent of popcorn, put their feet up, and watch the chaos evolve. Yeah, LA goes, there are 3,800 different cultures on our planet. I can't imagine how many in the universe. We can't make our own world work. What makes us think someone else has with lots more cultures? Yeah, could help us do anything. And you know, the funny part there is people won't, and it is a case of won't, on the whole, listen. Okay? You know, people are being put in positions of power in a number of different ways. Sometimes by election, sometimes because, hey, they got a good deal on potato chips, so that's where I'm going to buy them. Nobody seems to ask the people that are providing the potato chips, are they actually earning enough to survive? Okay, you know, that's the big thing. You know, that's the big one that we have to look at. If people are not being paid enough to keep a roof over their own head, it's that simple. Okay, and if this doesn't stop, then the rate of homelessness, the rate of people getting agitated, getting volatile, getting chaotic is going to continue to climb. And the off-worlders are not going to be able to curb it. Okay, because mankind has to choose to start looking for a peaceful solution. Okay, that's just the reality behind it. You know, really looking at this point is not off-worlders do for us. What can they bring us? But what can the human species bring to the off-world community? That's how you make your headway. Okay? And if you don't think you've got anything to bring to the community, here's a thought for you. Humans have a staggering creative capacity and you know, have a staggering creative community and capacity and the ability to manipulate what we call zero point energy, aka reality manipulation. Now, Callie is asking Keith, in what instance would the off-worlders step in and help? That's the easy part. If Esau, who you know as Mother Earth, Gaia, Mother Nature, any number of other things, okay, if Gaia, if Esau were in trouble, then the off-worlders would step in to protect her, not humans. And LA's going, you know, it has to be us. Nobody else can or should interfere. Absolutely correct. But, and this is where this stream is starting to make an impact, okay, where we can draw people together and point them in the right direction. Okay, this is clear. But we cannot effectively sit back and go, the government's going to sort it out. Have you ever noticed the government hasn't changed doing what they're doing very much yet? You go back to the 50s, and the governments were holding the opposite philosophies to what they are today. Here's the thing. It was protected, but you can only protect people so long, okay, from so much. Ultimately, they had to make the decision. They let their war get out of hand. Okay, so after it got out of hand, after the plan surfaced, was absolutely devastated. It wasn't until that happened that they turned around and accepted help from the Venusians to actually get some sort of a culture together that wasn't based on tearing each other apart. Okay, but the Martokians were warned on the path they were on, they were going to burn the planet's surface. Well, guess what? They didn't believe the off-worlders any more than humans have. Okay, and by the way, you see the barren landscape that is on Mars. It's going to look very similar to on Earth here. It's going to be decades, probably centuries, but on the path you're currently on, you're heading down the same road Mars is. Now, since Mars got wiped out, you know, since Mars surface world got wiped out, they finally started several thousand years ago, started listening to the people saying, hey, there's a problem, we can't continue down this road. If they hadn't, their civilization would have been wiped out entirely, not just moved underground. Okay, now, Philip, here's a neat little point for you. Philip's going, I don't want to be expendable. That sounds scary. And it can be. So, make yourself useful. Do not buy into what you cannot do or what is impossible. Okay, take a look at what you're capable of. What kind of an example in thought, word, and deed are you following? Okay, I was looking at it just the other day. Actually, I was looking at it just today again. But I know what I've got coming in now. I knew up until this morning that I was going to be about $100 short of what I require. I am happy to say I looked into Buy Me a Coffee today, and I'm happy to say the $100 I needed to get past that is in Buy Me a Coffee. And we're only on the 10th of the month. So what we're looking at here, learn from the off-worlders. In other words, figure out how to get along with your family members where you're working and doing what is required to cooperatively run the household. Then reach to the neighbors around you in the community and let it ripple out. We get enough of these little pocket changes and we will change the course that society is on. But you've got to put the negative past to rest. This does not mean forget what was done. It means capitalize on and focus on what can be done. Okay, the big thing that you got to realize is with the off-worlders, they have a simple philosophy. You guys have to figure out how to get along, how to work as a species, not just as a community, not just as individuals, but as an entire species. Okay, if you don't, this world is going to continue to degrade. Okay, and that's just the reality of it. Do not take my word for it. Don't do anything about it. Sit back. You'll find out in the very near future just how bad an idea that is. But can we, as a species, turn this around? Okay, can we make the changes happen in spite of the so-called leadership? And Philip goes, means remember and make improvements. Essentially, yes. When you see something that isn't working, adjust it so it's got a better shot at working. Okay, The reality is, and this is why when I've gone through my entire office area now, all of the clutter from that 15-foot desk I've got, including the inventory shelving, is now devoid of clutter. It's all got its own place. Okay. Yes. On the dresser top here, I've got a whole pile of paperwork that I've got to go through. And I've started wiping it out. But now it gets wiped out and put where it belongs. Okay. Now, am I going to continue posting? We are evolving. Positive Perspectives has now been evolved into an actual magazine. It will be coming out on the 29th. I think it's the 29th. Let's just double check and make sure. Yeah, no. On the 28th of March, the last Friday of March, it will be coming out with a whole pile of changes laid out. Okay. In the meantime, in between time, and let us have fun. I like the idea. But that means it's time to work together. Okay. And do not make the mistake, please, of waiting for the government, for the major industry moguls, for the spiritual guides. Don't wait for them to tell you what's necessary. When you see something that is off kilter, and this is how the off-worlders managed to straighten it out. When something was proven to be off kilter, or for that matter, suspected of being off kilter, they turned around and went, okay, how do we make an adjustment to bring it back on track? You don't change the direction of tide and the river is going, whether it's energetic or matter. Okay, you don't change that direction by wishful thinking. Okay, would be nice if it did, but it doesn't work that way. The nice thing about it is we are evolving things here. Okay, and as soon as I've got the money together for it, I am simply going to sit down and go, okay, this is what we require. This is what I know is lacking in society. There we go. Moon Rider goes dinner tonight. Banana. I'm not sure why a banana is really good for dinner. I've done it myself, but when we take a look at the whole thing, okay, it is time to start communicating with the people around you. And by the way, for those of you that have had the dubious pleasure of being abducted, talk to the alien people you meet. Okay, do your best, and this is going to be a tall order in some cases, do your best not to fear them. Because most of them, especially the Zetas, are not interested in actually hurting you. Absolutely, the Talon will hurt you just because. Okay, the Vegans will hurt you because they don't understand pain. So it's not a deliberate thing, but they literally don't have any way of comprehending it. But here's the thing. If there is, in many of these planets, if there is a problem like what is going on here, okay, they come in their own world and wipe out, and I mean literally wipe out, the entire superstructure while instantaneously promoting lower end people into the proper position. Okay, because in many of these worlds, especially regarding their own, they will take a look at it and go, okay, that person is causing a problem. They will not go, oh, let's give them another term to see if we can straighten it out. They don't wait that long. Most of them are not patient. And when they've been called into different planets to help correct the problem. And people seem to grab the wrong people. A Strazazian will simply wipe out the command center. Okay. A Teklak won't even leave bodies behind. When you look at what we got here. Oh. Should have stayed it's a giant-sized banana. Sometimes at the store they have them twice the normal size. Gee, I just thought those were an anomaly. But it doesn't really surprise me. Appreciate the... Whoa. Yeah, Philip goes, I like the bananas coming in fully organic wrappers. That's the neat part about it. Yeah, and by the way, there's a lot of people that will eat said banana wrapper. But what we gotta remember is all the improvements in the world aren't worth the money that's put into them if they deplete people's ingenuity and people's ability to communicate. Okay, this is the one thing that mankind can improve on like that. Okay, and that is literally talk to your neighbor. Off-worlders have a tendency, if they're actually striving to straighten their problem out, they will sit down and they will absolutely sit down and talk. One person stands at the front of the room to keep things moving. Okay, but there is none of this issue of, oh, we're not getting our way, so we're just going to close Parliament. Not going to happen that way. But what we've got to realize is off-worlders are black and white. In many cases, like for instance, Strazazians, they will literally terminate a problem child, even if he happens to be the president of a company. Doesn't matter. Okay, there are some that will literally banish you, not from the area, not from the building, from the planet. Okay, this is what they do. They come in and go, okay, here's a group of people. Yeah, it's a major country, but they're all pulling in the same stupid direction. How do we solve that and stop that poison from getting anywhere? No problem. Collect up all of them, and all you gotta do, and I'm not going to tell you what the sound wave is. Humans about 40, maybe 50 years ago discovered a sound wave, a sound frequency that literally knocks people out. Okay, now you can bet your bottom dollar off-worlders have better tech. Oh, Storm goes, as an FYI, greenhouse bananas tend to be much smaller than free-range bananas. And I'm guessing they're a little more well-behaved. But, the unfortunate part is that we are taught what we're supposed to be able to buy. Now, here's the funny thing. Everybody talks about organic. Okay? Understand, if your body can consume it and can break it down, it's organic. Okay? Because I'll guarantee, I understand. Organic food, people say, oh, well, they don't add pesticides. I won't argue that. But the farm next door, okay, or upwind from them, may well be using them. Net result, organic doesn't have pesticide, just means has a lot less. Okay, off-worlders take a look at it and go, if we're going to sort this mess out, we're going to take all the leaders that are sitting in a position and doing jack are going to be terminated first. This means that the population now has to find a new set of leaders. Okay. Oh, there we go. Thank you for the heads up, LA. We are down to the last 10 minutes here. So the off-worlders, the first thing they do in order to clear out this kind of chaos, they don't go just to, oh, there's a first world country. They go every one of the countries. They will wipe out the leaders. They don't go and wipe them out by going, let's kill 800,000 people before we get to them. They will pinpoint their target to take out the leaders without ramifications, without echoes. They'll take out the primaries, the secondaries, and the tertiaries of every community. And yes, this means, by the way, let's say you're running a small church and you're the priest at the top. You're the leader. They'll take you out of the equation because the political field, the pedagogical field, in other words, the education field, the government fields, these are places that have the most influence. And if the world has gone sideways, that's where you start. According to off-worlders, you don't wait to see which one's going to make a mistake. They just go, you've all let this happen. Mistakes already done. Now, they will step in. The off-worlders will step in and help the people pick a leader. Okay. They will come in, design how to make it happen, and then let the humans run it. Okay. In this case, we're talking about actual humans. Philip goes, I could tell which ones had more pesticides when my grandma was alive because her body would have a negative reaction. Same with certain additives, like some preservatives and such. Absolutely, Philip. And I will tell you, I am not the one to talk to about nutrition. I'm bad at it. Okay? It works well for me. I haven't killed my kids off. But off-worlders won't wait for nutrition to kill you. Okay, if they come down to straighten the mess out, they're going to straighten it out in a hurry. And then the few survivors will get to figure out how to fit in with it. Blue, how you doing? Glad you could join us. One of the things that we have to remember, off-worlders have a different level of tolerance because they've already got a one-world government, not a dictatorship. Okay, but because they've already got it, few of the off-worlders understand exactly what the life was like before this whole connection. Now is the time to start working with them and figuring out what you're not doing right in your world, not in somebody else's. This is where we have a major complication. Now, when we take a look at it, all you got to ask yourself, first of all, is are you content with your current life? If the answer is yes, this is fantastic. Stick with it. If the answer is no, make changes. Start adjusting what you're up to elicit a different outcome. Quit doing the same thing over and over. Okay, because if you do, you're going to run into all kinds of major problems. Okay, at this point, we have to realize that the politicians, the priesthood, the pedagogues, pulled an absolute blank, and the parents have to start working together. Okay, you gotta start communicating with each other and let go of the differences that don't add up. I'll tell you, you take a look at a skeleton. The odds are you're not going to know whether it was a Democrat or a Republican, whether or not it was white, black, or pink. Okay, all you're going to know is it's a skeleton. Looks very similar to every other one. Okay, now with this in mind, off-worlders simply go, they need to step down. So let them know if the off-worlders were going to cure it, they'd come in and go, "You're not staying. You got one of two choices: get off the field, or we drag you off." Now, given the enforcers in this sector, that's not going to bode well because they're high density individuals and they have a very focused outlook. So what we're looking at is it's time to take a serious look at the off-world method of doing things, which really boils down to communication. If you're not communicating, you're not going to make headway. It's that simple. Okay. Now, by no means am I perfect. Okay. I make my mistakes. But I do my best to learn from them. And as Joe Stewart used to put it, I'm not perfect, but I am doing my best. Okay. This is what we've got to look at. And absolutely, bring your friends, bring strangers. It's time we get this message out on force. Okay, but I do see we've just dropped below the 5. I want to say thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight. We are going to be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to take a look at the ancient races, i.e. the ones still on Earth that are not the dominant species. We're going to look at how those people deal with a lot of this chaos and how they have dealt with it. So with that in mind, okay, I will be back tomorrow with that. Wednesday, we're going to take a look at near-death experiences. What can you learn with them? That's on Friday, because tomorrow's Tuesday. Okay, and then of course Wednesday, Thursday, we're off. Yeah, Philip goes, abs are more high density than a flabby tummy, like mine. Absolutely they are, but you've got the ability to change that. And I'm thinking we're going to have to do that one of these days soon. Most of you, I'm no phys ed instructor, but I do know what works for me. Okay, and we're going to have to look at health again at some point in the near future, but we got a few things to work on first. Now, with this in mind, okay, I do want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the input. And a special hats off to those of you that have recently purchased the book. Every book that has been purchased as of today, as of this morning, is en route to its given purchasers. Okay. Absolutely, we are adding to the repertoire that we've got. But I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, do take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes,